Now, I think Pokemon Legends ZA did a great job of making sure we can get 227 Pokemon throughout the entire city. Now, I say 227 because you can't find the legendaries besides like through story main plots or side plots. And you can only get one of them. Like one of each species. However, there are other Pokemon that are native to the Kalos region that you can't find here in Lumio City. Now, I am going to kind of go through the entire X and Y Pokedex. And I'm going to try to figure out where I would put every single Pokemon. So, yeah, as I was saying, I'm not counting the legendaries. And if there's a Pokemon that can be found in Hyperspace Lumios that it's on this list, I'm not going to talk about them. I mean, I will specify if they are in Hyperspace Lumios or not. So, we don't have to worry about the Kalos starters because we can find them in Wild Zones 16, 17, and 18. Funnelby and Diggersby, we can find those for sure in Wild Zone 1. Well, at least Funnelby in that one. Diggersby, Wild Zone 17. I'm going to try to limit myself to only picking like 1 to 2 places where these Pokemon can spawn, but they could probably appear in more places. Zigzagoon, that is the first one I'm going to talk about. So I think you could put it here in Wild Zone 1, or you could go with Wild Zone 2. But since Zigzagoon is based on a raccoon, you could probably find them in the same places you can find Rubbish and Garbodor. Fletchling, you can find that all over the city, Wild Zone 1 as well. So, Fletchling, we don't have to worry about. Pidgey, we don't have to worry about either. Scatterbug, don't have to worry. Caterpie, you can... I think that should be in Wild Zone 1 or other places around the city. Kind of like what you can do with Weedle. Yeah, Weedle. Speaking of Weedle, we don't have to cover Weedle. Unobin monkeys, we can find those throughout the city. Pichu, you can find in Wild Zone 1. Pikachu, you can find a Static Alpha in Wild Zone 6. You can also find them in Wild Zone 3. Raichu, I believe you can find those in Hyperspace Distortions, but realistically, you could just evolve a Pikachu. Bidoof and Bibarel. Bidoof, I think Wild Zones 2 and 11 are the best option. And same with Bibarel. But for Bibarel, I think you could have like a Static Alpha in Wild Zone 11. Or you could put them alongside like the 60 some odd other Pokemon you can find underneath Prism Tower. Dunsparce, Oh, yeah, I think Wild Zone 7 and 8 would be the two best places. Maybe even Wild Zone 17? Because you could realistically bring the Dunsparce back into the game. But yeah, Okay, I just had to pull up the Hyperspace Lumios Pokedex. Because as of filming this, I don't have that Pokedex completed. Alright, Azurill, Marill, and Azumarill. So, Azurill, that evolves with high friendship. So I feel like that should also be Wild Zone 1 or Wild Zone 2. Maybe even both. Or maybe you can find it in like one of these little patches of water, like around the map. Marill. I mean, yeah, and Azumarill, and Azurill could get high friendship as of this point, like Wild Zone 2. But I feel like maybe it could be down here with Magikarp in Wild Zone 6, while Azumarill could be in Wild Zone 11. Burmy and Wormadam, literally just trees around the city. Wormadam and Motham, those, I believe, well, Wormadam, those can also be on trees. Motham, realistically, could be up on rooftops. Now, what Wild Zone has, like, a lot of trees? Besides Wild Zone 20. Oh yeah, Wild Zone 13, they could all be there. Or maybe even just Motham and Wormadam. Surskit, that seems like the perfect area to Pokemon. And Masquerain, Rooftops, or Wild Zone 11. Okay, we don't need to talk about Magikarp and Gyarados. Yeah, I don't see Corphish on this list. So Corphish, I believe, could be either Wild Zone 10 or 11. Along with Crawdon. Goldeen and Seaking, I mean, I guess you could put them in, like, Wild Zones 2, or... I feel like Wild Zone 2 would probably be the best place. But Seaking, probably 11. Okay, we don't need to talk about the Carvana or Litleo line. Psyduck. Once again, Wild Zone 2. Maybe even Wild Zone 3. because it's kind of in character for Psyduck. You could be so confused why there isn't water around. And then Golduck, I feel like that could be in like Wild Zones 10 or 11. Farfetch, that's already in Hyperspace Lumio, so I'm not going to discuss that. Riolu can be found on rooftops. Lucario, Wild Zone 20. In fact, the other day, like as of filming this, I was streaming and I found a shiny Lucario in Wild Zone 20. Okay, the Ralts line, we don't have to worry about Flabebe, don't have to worry about that. But don't have to worry. Ladybug and Ledian. Ladybug, Wild Zone... Oh yeah, Wild Zone 1. And then Ledian... I guess Wild Zone 13. And you can literally just do the same with Combee and Vespiquen. Like, I'm not trying to put everything weak in Wild Zone 1, but it's kind of the best option. Well, no, I think you could pull off having Combee in Wild Zone 2, because you can find it in, like, areas with lots of trees in Legends Arceus. So, yeah, Combee, Wild Zone 2, Vespiquen, either 13 or 15. I keep forgetting that Wild Zone 15 has, like, 3 bug types. So yeah, we're gonna keep Ledian in 13, but move Vespiquen to 15. Skitty and Delcatty. Honestly, Skitty seems like a good choice for either Wild Zone 5 or Wild Zone 3. Delcatty, I would say like Wild Zone 9. Maybe even like occasionally in Wild Zone 19. Okay, we don't have to worry about any of the Kanto starters, because Bulbasaur, Squirtle, and the Goat can be found here in Wild Zone 20. Okay, we don't have to worry about Skiddo, Pancham, or Furfrou. Doduo. That one might be a bit harder to place. I mean, I guess Wild Zone 7? Or realistically, you could take some of these areas and just make them like little special like safari zones that are themed to fit specific Pokemon. I mean, yeah, these are technically safari zones, but this way it would be like the traditional safari zones, where yes, you do have to pay money to get in, but you don't get stopped by going over the step limit, and you could like get extra safari balls. But the safari balls only work in the safari zones in this area, this area, we'll leave this area alone. That's a little taxi area. I feel like this would be a better spot. Like, just have, like, 5 of them surrounding the map. Where they're themed differently. Like, there could be, like, an area for, like, fire, ground, and rock types. Or steel types as well. You could have one for, like, traditional Safari Zone Pokemon. But yeah, I would honestly do that for, like, Doduo. Okay, Plusle and Minun. Wild Zone 14 seems like one of the better options. Maybe even Wild Zone 3. Open and Swalot, those are in Hyperspace Lumios. Scraggy and Abra, we're not worrying about those. The Oddish line. Wild Zone 2 seems like the perfect point to put Oddish. And back to the Safari Zone idea. Yes, that it's also where you find Dodrio. In fact, you can even put, like, Vileplume and Bellossom in there. Heck, you can even put those in, like, this area right here, Wild Zone 20. But Gloom, I feel like Wild Zone 13 seems like the perfect place. Heck, maybe even Wild Zone 5 for Oddish. Alright, Sentret and Furret. Yeah, I feel like Wild Zone 2 would be a good spot for them. Heck, maybe you can even find them in, like, some of these courtyards, like, around the map. Kind of like what you can do with Baneri and some Bunnelby. Nincada, Ninjask, and Shedinja. Shedinja, I feel like you could have as like a static alpha in Wild Zone 4. But it's very rare. Nincada... I guess Wild Zone 2? And then we can have Ninjask in, like, Wild Zone either 13 or maybe even in Wild Zone 7. Okay, we don't have to worry about Esper, Kecleon, Honedge, Venipede, or Audino. Smeargle... I feel like Smeargle would be better off throughout the city, but near, like, fountains or beautiful scenery. Because it's an artist. And it would just make sense. Yeah, I don't think Smeargle's in the DLC. Nope, it's not. Okay. Croagunk and Toxicroak. Ah. Oh. I mean, maybe you could put Grogunk in Wild Zone 5, but like right in here? Toxicroak, I feel like Wild Zone 11. Alright, Ducklet and Swanna. Ducklet, Wild Zone 2, or maybe like one of the little watery spots, like around the map. Swanna, Wild Zone 11. Oh, yeah, I guess you could also put like Smeargle in Wild Zone 11. Okay, we don't need a Spritzy or Swirlix. Okay, Volbeat and Illumise, I feel like those could also be in like a little wild zone. I mean, where else would I put them? Because all of these other areas that I'm doing, like Wild Zone 1 and 2, are getting filled with bugs. And besides, they're not. They're pretty much the same Pokemon. Because they're both normal type, they're both weak. They're just counterparts. I mean, I guess you could also have them on rooftops. Hoppip. Yeah, that line you can just find all around the city on rooftops. Okay, Munchlax. That I feel like you should find in little courtyard sections, like next to, like, food vendors. Like, okay, I don't know the exact area where they have little food stands. Oh yeah, I know there's one near Wild Zone 3. Yeah, like in this section. You should be able to find Munchlax there. Like, if Munchlax was in the game. Whismer is putting the crash. Hey, Snorlax, I forgot to mention that. That, I feel like, it would make, like, a great side quest for when you get to Wild Zone 11. Like, someone knows that a Snorlax is blocking the water from flowing throughout the rest of the Seasong Canal. And then you gotta try to catch it there. But once you catch that and complete that mission, it will then show up in Wild Zone 20, like as a rare spawn, trying to do the same thing, and yes, you can absolutely shiny hunt it there. Or it could be one of the many Pokemon that you can find in Wild Zone 20. Ah. Oh yeah, Loudred and Exploud, since I already covered Whismer. Uh, Honestly, I don't really know where they would fit. I mean, I guess you could just keep Exploud as one of the alpha spawns underneath Prism Tower. Um, I mean, I guess you could put them in Wild Zone 17 because people were screaming for their lives after all the Pyroar. I mean, that just goes to show how little I care about this line. Meditite and Medicham, they're fine. Zubat, they're in Hyperspace Lumios. Axew, Fracture, and Haxorus. Haxorus would have been perfect to put in Wild Zone 20. I feel like you could put Axew in Wild Zone 15, up where the Larvitar are. And then Fracture... I guess you could put Fracture in Wild Zone 18. Okay, and then we're moving on to the coastal Pokemon. Drifloon and Drifblim. I had an idea, but I mean, yes, it is dark, but to be fair, Pokemon was the one who did it first. They have a habit of putting Drifloon near places that children are. Like, if I'm not mistaken, in Sun and Moon, a Drifloon can be at the school. Plus, there was a quest in Legends Arceus where you had to stop a Drifloon from taking a child. So realistically, you could probably have them spawn on the roof at the academy. You can even turn that into a side quest. But in all seriousness, they would probably be nighttime exclusive spawns around the city. Mienfoo and Mienshao. Okay, I feel like they could spawn around the area of the Justice Dojo. Mienfoo, maybe. In the same area Meditite spawns in Wild Zone 6. And maybe Mienshao in Wild Zone 12. Zangoose and Seviper, they are in the DLC. Same with Spoink. Absol, we already know where that spawns. Inkay, that also spawns in the game already. Oh, Lunatone and Solrock. Okay, you could either do like Wild Zone 7, 8, or 19. Okay, Bag Online, we don't have to worry about. Wingull and Pelipper. Pelipper should be like a fixed spawn in Wild Zone 11. Wingull, I think you could just have that like flying over like the water in many parts of the map. Tailo and Swellow. Yeah, once again, all over the city. It gives us some variation in shinies we can keep finding. But, okay, Swellow, I feel like... Yeah, Wild Zone 9 feels like a Swellow area. Okay, I'm really tempted. You know what? Let me go take care of that really quick. Okay, on my way over to the Porygon, I found another shiny Trubbish. Come on. Oh, I love it so much. My first shiny, not on stream. Oh yeah, I stream here on YouTube and over on Twitch on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays. Oh yeah, let me go deal with this Porygon really quick. Alright, I managed to get one Porygon. There were two that spawned in as the donut ended. Which I'm a little salty about that. Alright, so... Oh. Let me do a little bit of organization. Alright. Back to the map. Yeah, I already talked about Tailo and Swallow. Being able to find them around the map, that'd be cool. Or maybe even in, like, specific wild zones. Well, like, safari zones. That I kind of designated in a few of these spots. Webble and Crustle. I feel like 7 and 8, once again, would be, like, the best options. But once again, I'm not paying attention to, like, levels of Pokemon and when some of them evolve, how they evolve. Like, if there's any of those changes, they can be made. This is just like a hypothetical situation. Tentacool and Tentacruel. I feel like Wild Zone 11 for both of them. Whalmer and Whale... Yeah, Yeah, let's just lump Love Disc in as well. Love Disc can, I don't know, be in like the Seesaw and Canal. Whalmer, I think, would be in like Wild Zone 11. And then Wailord, like exclusively the Wild Zone 20. I mean, where else are you gonna put a Wailord? What, like Wild Zone 12, where the Alpha Avalugg is? Okay, we don't need to talk about Skrelp, Clauncher, or Staryu. Shelter, I believe that could go... Yeah, I would say, like, the little river here, or the... Well, I wouldn't really call it a river, but this little bit of water in Wild Zone 6, or... like, maybe even Wild Zone 10. Oyster, I think Wild Zone 16. Or Wild Zone 12. Alright, Quillfish is in the DLC. Horsey, Kingdra, and Kingdra. Kingdra exclusively at a Wild Zone 20. Seadra, I would say Wild Zone 16. Horsey, maybe Wild Zone 11. Relicanth. Now, I think that would be one for the sewer. Like, I know it's a weird place to put Relicanth, but it's supposed to be this ancient being. Like, you shouldn't be able to just find an ancient being like in some artificial wild zone. And besides, there's a way that a Relicanth could find its way into the sewers. And no, that's not a jab at Relicanth. I like Relicanth. Okay, let's see. We don't need to talk about Sandile, Helioptile, or Hippopotas. Rhyhorn, Rhyhorn and Rhydon. One of the special Safari Zone. Heck, or maybe you can just have like one big one big Safari Zone. Like, realistically, you could probably open up this gate, have like a loading zone that leads into a building that leads into this one little outside section. Well, not necessarily little. It could be kind of like Lysander Labs and the sewers, where you can go throughout this one area and catch exclusive Pokemon. Rhyperior, I feel like that would be a Wild Zone 20 Pokemon. Alright, Onix, Steelix, we don't have to worry about those. Woobat and Swoobat. Okay, I feel like those you could probably put in Lysander Lab. Or you could put them in the Hyperspace Distortion. Specifically... Where... The ones for psychic types, and where are the ones for flying types? Really? I don't have one for either? Okay, here's flying types. Yeah, probably one of the weaker ones for the flying types. Yeah, maybe like 2-star for Woobat, 3-star for Swoobat. Okay, we don't need to talk about the Machop line. The Cubone line is in the DLC. Kangaskhan, Mawile, Tyrant, Amora, and Aerodactyl are all in the base game. Alright, Pharaoh Seed. Honestly, Wild Zone 14 seems like the only place I can think of. Besides, like, a special Safari Zone. Or maybe even Lysander Labs. Snubble and Granbull. Uh, I think Granbull could be in like Wild Zone 19. Snubble, I feel like you could possibly find that in like Wild Zone 9. Maybe even 7. Okay, the Electrike, Houndour, Eevee, and Emolga lines don't need to be discussed, which means we jump all the way down to Yanma and Yanmega. Yanmega I could absolutely see in Wild Zone 15. But Yanma, I feel like that you could find like anywhere in the city. Also, maybe even Wild Zone 11. Because the majority of the dragonflies I've seen in my life have been around water. Alright, Hawlucha, we don't need to talk about that. Sigilith. You know what? I'm gonna take the easy way out. Hyperspace Distortion. Once again, specifically Psychic or Flying. Bullet and Golurk, they're in the DLC. Nose Pass and Probopass. Yeah, I feel like you could find... well, you should be able to find both of them in Wild Zone 14. Oh, here's a Flying type one. Yeah, maybe even put Swoobat in this one. No, not Swoobat. Woobat. Okay. Yeah, Probopass and Nose Pass, Wild Zone 14. Makuhita or Hariyama. I feel like Makuhita would probably be better off in Wild Zone 8. Hariyama, Wild Zone 12. Talk, Throw, Starly, all of them are in the DLC. Stunky and Skuntank. Yeah, honestly, I can't really think of a place for them. But yeah, I'm going to have to go with either like the Special Safari Zone or put them in the sewers. Or maybe even one of these hyperspace wild zones. Alright, both Nidoran lines I'll talk together. Yeah, I'll talk about together. The Nido King and Nido Queen, Wild Zone 20. That just seems like a fitting place. Nidorino and Nidorina. I would, I would say maybe like Wild Zone 5. And then Nidoran, male and female, they would be like Wild Zone 3. Okay, Dedenne, Chingling, the Mimes, we don't have to talk about them. Alright, Solosis, Duosion, and Reuniclus. I feel like Lysander Labs is the perfect place for them. Why not in Wobbuffet? I don't... Oh. Uh... Okay, I think why not should be in, like... Wild Zone 6. While Wobbuffet should be... like, Wild Zone 12. Honestly, I'm just saying Wild Zone 12 because of the Machoke and the Machop. Okay, Rock'n'Rolla, Boldor, and Gigalith. Gigalith, I think, could be one of the alphas you find under Prism Tower. Boldor, Wild Zone 14. Rock'n'Rolla, I would say, like, either 7 or 8 once again. Boros and... well, oh yeah, we gotta skip over Sableye and Carping. Boros and Miltank, special Wild Zone. Well, special uh, Safari Zone. Okay, we gotta skip over Mareepline, Pinsir, and Heracross. Pachirisu. I feel like Wild Zone 2, since there's so many trees there. Maybe you can even find it throughout the city. Kind of like how you can find some Emolga on rooftops, as well as some Dedenne. Skip over the Slowpoke line, Execute and Executor. Uh, I don't know, I'm kind of feeling Wild Zone 11 for them. I mean, it's not really tropical anywhere. But you can find palm trees around shorelines. Alright, Chatot. Ah. Honestly, probably just a hyperspace distortion for that. Mantike and Mantine. I mean, Mantike, I guess Wild Zone 2. Mantine, probably 11. Plant Pearl, Huntail, and Gorbis. And I don't know, Wild Zone 11 is getting really crowded. Okay, I think Clamperl, Wild Zone 2, the others Wild Zone 16 or 10. Remoraid. Uh, okay, yeah, Remoraid and Octillery I'll save for uh like a special section in the Safari Zone. Uh, Corsola. Yeah, that seems like it would be something for like the Safari Zone. Chinchou and Lantern. Yeah, those will probably just be like sections of the Seasong Canal. Alomomola, Hyperspace Distortion, Lapras. I feel like that should start off as a gift Pokemon, but then you can eventually find it and be able to shiny hunt it in the Safari Zone. Okay, I'm not going to discuss the Cantonian bird. I mean, yes, we can bring up Articuno, Zapdos, and Moltres. Articuno, like a post-game side mission in Wild Zone 12. Zapdos, same concept, but this time Wild Zone 14. Moltres. You know what? Game Freak would be evil enough to do it. Post-game side mission Wild Zone 17. Alright, wait, hold on. Now, did I talk about the legendaries in the first section? Oh no, Diancie, Hoopa, and Volcanion are already in the game. We don't have to worry about them. Alright, now that we're done with those first two sections of the Kalos Dex, now we're on to the last one. Diglett and Dugtrio. Wild Zones 7 and 14. Trapinch, Vibrava, and Flygon. Flygon Wild Zone 20, Vibrava Wild Zone. Yeah, I'd say like the bottom part of Wild Zone 17. And Trapinch Wild Zone 8. Golem, exclusively an alpha underneath Prism Tower. Graveler. Yeah, I guess both Geodude and Graveler in Wild Zone 8. Slugma and Macargo. Yeah, I guess leave those for the special Safari Zone. Now, I should specify I'm not... I did not script any of this. I'm just going through the Pokedex and just coming up with the first thing that pops up in my mind. Juckle. Yeah, I feel like Wild Zone 8. Skaroopy, I feel like that could be like Wild Zone 5, Drapion, Wild Zone 15. And yes, I do know that none of this could realistically happen because it's way too many Pokemon to be sticking in small wild zones. But this is just a hypothetical situation. Okay, Wooper and Quagsire. I feel like Wooper would be a good addition to Wild Zone 8. Quagsire, you could put in Wild Zone 10 or 16. Alright, we don't have to talk about the Goomy line. Carablast and Shelmet, since they're counterparts, let's put them in Wild Zone 3. Escavalier and Iselgor, Wild Zone 13. Don't need to talk about the Bellsprout line. Carnivine. Yeah, Wild Zone. What? Nope. Let's put it in the Safari Zone. Don't need to talk. Don't need to talk about the Gengar line, but the Poliwag line. Poliwag, Wild Zone 2. Poliwhirl, Wild Zone 10. Poliwrath and Politoed, Wild Zone 11. Ekans and Stunfisk, we don't need to talk about. Barboach and Whiscash. I don't think they're in the DLC. No, they are not. Yeah, I guess you could put them in like a hyperspace distortion. Okay, Purloin was added to the DLC. Okay, Poochyena and Mightyena. I think Mightyena would go in like Wild Zone. Yeah, I feel like Wild Zone 5. While Poochyena could go in like Wild Zone 3. Okay, the Patrat line we don't need to worry about. Pawniard, Bisharp, and King Gambit. I think Pawniard, Wild Zone 14, Bisharp Wild Zone 19. Well, no, not 19. Yeah, I think Wild Zone 17. And King Gambit exclusively Wild Zone 20 as an alpha under the tower. Alright, Klefki we don't have to worry about. Murkrow, I don't remember if you were added or not. Alright, I think Honchkrow, Wild Zone 16, since it's close to the Rust Syndicate building. I mean, yeah, Wild Zone 5 as well. You know what? Let's just put Murkrow in Wild Zone 5. Fungus and Amoonguss, they're in the DLC. The Lotad line. Ludicolo, Wild Zone 20, in the section with Squirtle and Totodile. I mean, there's other Pokemon in that little section as well. Lombre, I feel like Wild Zone 16. And then Lotad, Wild Zone 2. Blazel, Wild Zone 2. Bloatzel, Wild Zone 11. Basculin. That seems like something... yeah, let's just put all three forms in Wild Zone 2. Well, okay, no. We put White Stripe Basculin in the DLC in one of the Hyperspace Distortions, along with Basculegion, while the Red Stripe and the Blue Stripe are in Wild Zone 2. Okay, Phantom, Pumpkaboo, Litwick, and Rotom are all in the game. Magnemite, Magneton, and Magnezone. Magnemite and Magneton, Wild Zone 14. There's no other place to realistically put them. Magnezone and Alpha underneath Prism Tower. Voltorb Electrode, Wild Zone 14, Oral Lysander Labs. I mean, I guess you can do the same with the Magneton line. Oh, well, the Magnemite line. Okay, Trubbish we don't have to worry about. Swinub and Piloswine. Well, I guess you could put the entire line here in Wild Zone 12. But Mamoswine would have to be like a guaranteed... I don't know, it would have to be like a static alpha, but it just switches like time of day with the Abomasnow. Cubchoo and Beartick, Wild Zone 12. Smoochum and Jinx. Put them in the Wild Zone. And not the Wild Zone, the Safari Zone that I came up with up here. Then we can skip Vanillite, Snover, and Delibird. Sneasel and Weavile. Yeah, I feel like Sneasel, Wild Zone 12. Weavile, Wild Zone 20. But as an alpha. Under the tower. And then DLC for Hisuian, Sneasel, and Sneasler. Okay, Timber, Wild Zone 8, Girder. Oh, okay, yeah, Timber, also Wild Zone 9. Girder, uh... I would say, like, Wild Zone 18, Hunkelder, and Alpha underneath Prism Tower. Oracle, let's put in the Wild Zone. Safari Zone. Sandshrew and Sandslash, both of them can go into Wild Zone 8. Skip the Aeron and Larvitar lines. Eat more Endurant. Uh... Yeah, I don't really know. Uh... Yeah, I guess you can put those in the Safari Zone as well. Skip over the Spinnerack line. Spearow flying around the city. Spearow probably Wild Zone 9. But realistically, there's 6 sections. They probably could have done like Pidgey in 1, Fletchling in 1, Tailo in 1, Spearow in 1, and then have 2 other spaces for other birds. Alright, Cryogonals in the DLC, Skarmory, Noibat, those 2, along with Noivern, are already in the game. Gligar and Gliscor. I think Gligar, Wild Zone 8, Gliscor, Wild Zone 17. Oh yeah, Hoot Hoot and Noctowl. Make them the Pokemon that fly around the city at night. Alright, Igglybuff line in the DLC, Shuppet already in the game. Alright, Zorua and Zoroark. I think those could be... Okay, I think Zorua should be in Wild Zone 9, in like some of the darker areas. And then Zoroark could be like Wild Zone 16. Gothita, Gothorita, and Gothitelle. Gothitelle, Wild Zone 20. Gothorita, I feel like we could put her in Wild Zone. Yeah, I guess 16. And then Gothita in Wild Zone 9. Bonsai and Sudowoodo, they can go... You know what, just for comedy's sake, Bonsai in Wild Zone 2, and then... Sudowoodo in Wild Zone. Yeah, like Wild Zone 13. Spinda, Teddiursa, Ursaring, and Ursaluna. I would honestly put them in, like, the Safari Zone. Same with the Lickitung line. Ditto would be in Lysander Labs. Druddigon, Dino, and Zweilous would all be in Wild Zone 18. Hydreigon, Alpha underneath Prism Tower in Wild Zone 20. And that covers the entire Pokedex. Now, I don't know how many Pokemon I've sorted through, but it was quite a bit. Now, if you guys have any other better suggestions on where I could put some Pokemon, I would love to hear your opinions. And if you disagree with any of my ideas, be respectful about it. Oh yeah, you probably won't see many videos from me, like, playing this game off stream. Or at least on my main account. Like, I do intend on trying to Nuzlocke this game. I mean, yeah, I just got done with a Nuzlocke. Like, at the end of 2025. Well, towards the end of 2025, but... honestly, I've seen how people have done that. And honestly, it seems like something that could be manageable. Oh! I didn't know Feebas spawned here now. But yeah, I think that's just like a nice touch when it comes to like adding some of the DLC Pokemon. Like, they talk about like Pokemon coming into our version of Lumiose from Hyperspace Lumiose, but you don't really see it that often. Yeah, with I think that's everything for this video. So thank you all so much for watching. Please like, share, subscribe. Comment any other video ideas you have for the future, and I'll catch you in the next one.